Livestock news brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Hi, I'm Chad with Premier Farm and Home, and I have with me today Wes Blair of Blair Milling out of Atchison and Seneca. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about brood cow management and some of the factors involved in taking care of a herd of cattle. Today we want to talk a little bit, Wes, what do you think is probably one of the most important things in a brood cow operation if they were going to do one thing?
Right now, this time of year, I think, or any time of the year, the first thing you want to think about is your mineral consumption.
Sure.
And you got to have that calcium, phosphorus, mineral, of at least 1 to 2 ratio. And most of these minerals today are salt-based minerals. They get them to eat it, they get them to quit eating it. It's the most economical way to feed mineral.
Okay.
One thing that's really important this time of year is make sure those minerals that your everyday mineral has a level of magnesium in it. At least you're getting some magnesium into these animals before we hit grass tetany season.
And when we get into supplementing with magnesium, what's the big reason, or when should a guy start in this program? Should it be, just go out there a few days before when he puts them on grass, or how long do you think he needs to build that up?
Magnesium needs to be introduced slowly prior to grass tetany, because it takes time for magnesium to build up in the system, and that's one of the reasons a low level of magnesium in your everyday mineral will bring that cow into the season with a level of magnesium in the bloodstream. So if you are a little late getting the high mag mineral out there, you've got some protection, you've got a little insurance. Where if they don't have any magnesium at all, then you're already behind the 8 ball, and you're trying to force feed magnesium into them to
which
prevent.
We know isn't a very palatable.
It's not very palatable. It's hard to get them to eat it, and so then it makes it more susceptible to grass tetany in the spring.
Okay, so aside from mineral, when we go in there and we look at some other things through the winter, oftentimes we get questions at the store about protein or energy supplementation. If a guy had a 50 head or less operation, what do you think are some of the options that he may have?
We've got, it's cost versus convenience, like you and I have spoke about before. A guy can take his own corn, take a commercial protein, grind and mix that. That's a cheap and economical way of doing it, but it's very time consuming. A lot of guys don't have time to do that.
And a lot of guys that have your 50 head or less operations, time is a luxury for them. A lot of times they have other jobs or in-town jobs, and some of these other products, kind of really fit towards them, that they can do it, like you said, conveniently. Yeah.
Exactly, and so then you get into the idea of cubes to feed 2 to 3 pounds of cubes per head per day, where you don't have to go out and actually grind the feed. And the nice thing about cubes is you're still going out every day, looking at the herd, checking your body condition, and knowing what your herd is doing.
Yeah, and in addition to that, with range cubes, you're also able to fluctuate how much you feed them. So when conditions get poor, you can supplement more or less, kind of depending on how that goes. Is that something you?
Yeah, you always are rolling the dice when you free choice anything, because you're leaving it up to the animal to consume what they think they need.
Right.
And that animal doesn't always know that storm's coming in. This is what I have to eat. And products that are manufactured to free choice have limiters in it.
Right.
And sometimes we want those limiters, but sometimes we don't.
Sometimes they need a little more.
They need more.
Wes, now we've decided that cubes and tubs are some of our most economical options if we're trying to cut back on labor a little bit for our 50 head or less operations. What are some of the major practices or the best ways that people go about implementing them, and how do you figure out how much you need per head per day, per each product, and those sorts of things? We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and have Wes with Blair answer those questions for you.
Livestock news brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Hi, I'm Chad with Premier Farm and Home, and we're back with Wes from Blair Milling, talking a little bit about protein and energy supplementation for cattle. Wanting to talk about cubes and tubs and the way that we go about implementing those, and the processes to figure out how much you need per head per day. so that you can effectively manage your operation. All right, Wes, when we talk about range cubes and we go out there and we're talking about how to feed those in the pasture, the way that you'd implement those is you'd go out and figure up how much total amount that you'd need to feed for that group of cattle, and then we're going to go out and actually feed that feed on the ground in piles for those cattle to go out and eat, correct?
Yeah, and the nice thing about cubes is they're large size. It cuts down on waste. The animal actually consumes what you're putting out there.
Right,
So, the smaller particle size can fall into the ground.
But we don't have any infrastructure investment in bunks and those sorts of things like you might have to if you're making your own ration or
Yeah,
if
and
you're trying to feed grain or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's all been formulated. You just go out there and put that out there for the cattle to eat, and you can. And the nice thing is by feeding cubes, you're doing it, on a daily basis, every other day, and you're keeping, an eye on your herd,
right,
and watching body condition.
And that's a little bit different than our approach with tubs. Tubs, for those of you who don't know, they're a supplement that we set out, and that animal has the option to eat that whenever he wants to. So they're going to come up and eat free choice, which is different than us going out and feeding them
exactly
a certain amount per day. So what's the major thing that a tub has over a cube, so to speak?
Tubs are more convenient. You can put a tub out and leave it out for weeks or days, or depending on how many animals you have consuming off that product.
Yeah.
And so you put those out and not have to come back for a few days.
Right.
It's a matter of convenience. Also, another nice thing about tubs is that when you have animals that overconsume,
right,
they have the ability to consume as much as they want and leave, and some of the ones that maybe get pushed out can come in and consume.
So that old boss cow that sits out there and just guards that pile of cubes, eventually she's going to get tired of doing that and move on, and sometimes the tubs offer a little opportunity for her to get in, or the other ones to get in and get a little more. With tubs, is your consumption the same? Is it different?
That depends on the tub, and there's so many tubs out there that you've got to do a little bit of homework. The less consumption on the tub, the less energy and protein they're going to consume.
Right.
It'll cost you less, but in cold weather or inclement weather, it may not be the best option for you at that time, a tub where they're not consuming quite enough.
Because you can't adjust, once they got out there, that's all they can eat based on the hardness or whatever.
Yeah, there's limiters to these tubs. They're designed so that they only eat so much of that tub. Right. And they will, it may vary somewhat, but they've got people that have put these tubs out, know what they're doing, and they've got it rationed out to what they're going to eat.
Livestock news brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
All right, Wes and that, we've kind of talked about the two options. I want to go through with him and just we'll just have a make-believe small herd size of 25 cows and just talk about how a person would figure up how much of each item he would need, how often he would need to go out and feed it. And so first I'd like to, since we're to kind of go back on range cubes. Range cubes is a daily feed, correct? Yep. So we're going to come out there every day, and if we had a 25 head operation and we're feeding 2 to 3 pounds per head per day.
Yeah, a lot of that depends on the weather.
Oh, well, that's true.
Weather and body condition.
So if we have a nice day, it's in the 50s, we're not raining, something like that, 2 pounds probably be great for them.
Yeah.
So with 25 head, 2 pounds per head, we're looking at a 50-pound bag of feed. So that convenient number there is one that we can go with. So if we go out, we put a bag of feed per day, and then if conditions change, we could maybe up that to a bag and a half per day or 2 bags, depending on the weather.
Weather and body condition.
Right, right. That's the other thing. If your cattle are slipping a little bit, we'd obviously want to be at the higher end of that ration rather than the lower end if they need a little bit more body conditioning.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if we have those 25 head, if we're trying to figure out, well, how many bags are they going to need over the next 10 days, let's say, it's pretty easy to do. We know that they're going to need a bag a day for 10 days. You're looking at 10 to 15 bags of feed. It's pretty easy when you're going out and making your buying decisions. You can do kind of a monthly ration. When we talk about the cost of cubes, this particular bag of cubes costs you about $7.49. That's roughly going to be your cost per day. Could be 1.5 times that. So we're looking at a cost of about 30 to 44 cents, somewhere around there, to maintain a brood cow, to supplement her through the winter. Now, when we look at tubs, how do we figure out how much they're supposed to eat?
The best way to do it is just put a tub out there and then figure out how many head you have and just how long it takes them to eat it, and then what your cost per head per day is.
It's my understanding that a lot of these tubs, if you have 50 head of cattle or 25 head of cattle, a lot of times you don't want to put just one tub out, correct? A lot of times they'll gang up on that tub. So usually it's about between 15 and 20 head, usually a minimum of 2 tubs, so that that boss cow can't guard that one tub. They kind of have some options. So if we were to put 2 tubs out, and they had there's tubs out there that have similar consumption to range cubes, it would take us about every 8 days on a 25 head of cattle. So rather than a person coming out and check them every day, which there's positives and negatives in that, but there's also labor associated with that. A guy could go out with a tub, check them every 8 days, put a couple more tubs out, and kind of continue from there. As far as cost goes, a typical 200-pound tub is going to cost you about $55, $50, somewhere around in there. On a cost per head per day basis, they're going to consume between 2 to 3 pounds, sometimes more, sometimes less. So it's going to run you roughly 50 to 80 cents, depending on how you figure your cows. And one other thing we should mention when we're supplementing, what happens if we've got fall calves out there? Does that change this picture a little bit?
Yeah, because they're going to also consume.
Correct.
And of course, they're going to, with the weather, they're going to need energy and protein also.
Correct.
So you need to figure what they're going to consume. It's probably going to be about half of what mama's going to eat.
Right. So if a guy goes out there and he's got a certain amount of brood cows, let's say 25, but he's got 25 fall calves on the side, we have to understand that those demands are going to be different than just 25 cows that are maybe going to calve in February or coming up here as spring calves. So as we go through, we just need to make those decisions for each of our operation. There's a couple good options there for everybody. So when you go and make your decisions, hopefully this was helpful in getting you there. I'd like to thank Wes from Blair Milling coming out here and helping me today. My name's Chad with Premier Farm and Home. You can go to our website and find out more information at heycow.com, or what's your website?
BlairFeeds.com.
Blair Feeds also has some great information for us.